right? One of the biggest risks in entrepreneurship historically was tied into the capital that you needed. And so, you know, banks still don't loan to people. But in theory, you would have maybe gone to a bank to get a loan to get that, you know, to get the first office space, you get the restaurant, I don't know, whatever you need. The physical stuff that required it.
Sure.
And there were costs associated with that. And you hear the stories of people maxing out their credit cards and going through taking on all this debt to start their company. The biggest risk you have starting a company online, when your biggest expenses are just your shelter and your food, like your servers. In 2006 when we sold Reddit, and obviously costs have changed a lot since then. Our three biggest expenses in descending order were rent, food, and servers. And this is when server costs were more expensive because we had to buy servers, take them to a colo facility. You guys can just take out a credit card and have servers running. It's amazing how much easier and cheaper it's gotten now. And we spent, I think it was $1,500 a month in rent in Boston for our 3-bedroom. And that was the biggest expense every month. And so like, put that in perspective. Like, if that's all you need to start and sustain your company, like you can take this risk, which really just means, say, let's spending a year or a year and a half or 2 years starting something. And the worst case scenario, you haven't incurred a ton of extra debt. You've basically learned a ton. You've gotten a chance to start a company and do all kinds of things. And when you go, you know, back into the workforce, you know, if you want to go get a real job, right? Afterwards, what do you think is going to impress a recruiter more than, oh, I spent the last 2 years running a company? Like, you're getting an education. I mean, when I think of like MBAs, it just seems so ridiculous because you're spending 2 years and a lot of money to make some connections and get drunk and read some case studies, right? But you could spend way less money. You could take that same amount of money, invest it in yourself, in a company, and have a much better, even if it's a total failure, even have a much better outcome. Because you show me 2 candidates and assuming she is the exact same person on every other metric, except one she went to get an MBA, Harvard, wherever, or Darden, and one, you know, where she started a company and it failed. But let's say, you know, as long as she wasn't being irresponsible with the failure, as long as it was like a lesson learned and she wasn't just like, we spent all the money on booze and like didn't give a damn, right? Assuming they were a reasonable person, that candidate is way more interesting to me. That is way more helpful for me as an employer or as an investor, because then I see, all right, you actually did stuff. You actually spent the last year, 2 years doing stuff, and when I look at all that, I think it's actually not that risky.